Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Pete.
How are you
How
today?
are you? Good.
So how's your day been so far?
Well, it's been a little hectic. I actually got to rebuild a PC, which was oh so very exciting.
This was a planned rebuild?
Yeah, I wish. No, actually, it was most definitely unplanned. I would guess it was. I'm losing track of my days now. Day before yesterday, because yesterday I actually had a workshop that I was teaching. But day before yesterday, I was working on my desktop PC, the one that I just had gotten to, well, not brand new, but refurbed, really nice IPS displays. I mean, I'm loving these monitors. So I had it all set up. I had my my Zoom mixer and my keyboard and the speakers and actually my Microbrute, which came in after our last show. Had all that stuff kind of hooked up and playing around with it. And I went yesterday. What was it I downloaded? I downloaded
porn.
Now I don't even remember what piece of software, but I downloaded some piece of software on Tuesday rather, and I went to run it. And I thought that the software had locked up my machine. And I thought, well, isn't that great? I'm really excited about that. And couldn't close. Couldn't start Task Manager. Couldn't close the process. It's like things were just going really kind of sideways. And so I powered the machine off, just did the one finger salute and went to turn it back on and started booting. And then I got the dreaded boot MGR is missing, Control-Alt-Delete to restart. Yes. And I thought, that's not a happy message. Ended up finally got a chance today to yank the SSD, which was my main boot drive, out of the machine, hooked it up to another machine with the little USB drive dongle that I've got, and nope, didn't show up in another machine either. So, yeah, so the SSD failed catastrophically.
Which is the only way they fail. You and I were talking about this.
Yeah. If you're very lucky, you might get some kind of a slight clue that it's starting to go bad. But yeah, generally speaking, they're just there, and then they're not there. Yeah. And once they're not there, it's you're basically impossible to get the data back. So I now have a 2.5 inch brick.
Yep. So how old is that drive?
Maybe a year and a half, not that long.
Really?
Unfortunately. And that, that's a bit of a concern. The good news is that most of the data that I have, I keep on spinny hard drives that are separate from the OS drive. Yep. So worst thing is I'm going to have to reinstall a whole bunch of stuff. And there were some things I think that were installed on this drive. So there's stuff that is just gone, which stinks. Used to be I had a Windows Home Server configured, and basically every machine in my house would just do nightly backups. Yep. And then that crapped out on me probably year and a half or so ago, and I just never got around to rebuilding that, which may have, on reflection, been a poor choice in terms of priorities on my part. I'm considering
Microsoft
given how much.
And Google and Apple and everybody else with online services should start marketing as the SSD backup. Like this is a good marketing campaign. Yes, that SSD is fast, but it is going to completely fail in 2 years. Yeah, well, and the sad truth is that this is not my first SSD failure. So you'd think I would have kind of learned my lesson. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to look into whether it might be possible to just create a nice little PowerShell script that would run regularly and just do a full system image on a regular basis. Just get a big old external hard drive and, just back things up, automatically regularly. I know a lot of folks, I actually was, kind of fetching on Twitter about the fact that my SSD died, and a bunch of folks were saying, well, you use Carbonite, or there's, it's like, I don't really want my data, all of that stuff out in the cloud. There's certain subsets of stuff, I've got a lot of stuff on SkyDrive, but there's stuff that I do want to just have local. So we'll see. Until the FBI comes over and sees it. then it's a problem, right?
You know, what I want is I want to be protected enough from failures that I don't have to, kind of redo everything. And honestly, the system image stuff, even though it's now hidden in Windows, in Windows 8, it's not as easy to find. Doing a full system image and restoring it is really, I got to say, it's an easy way. It takes a while to get the backup in the first place, but once you've got it, you can just basically pave, and you can do it on the individual drive level. So my wife, I had a machine that my wife was using, and I wanted to switch her out with a new. I got her a Surface Pro, the first version. And so what I did was I just took a system image of the machine that she was using, which the only limitation is really the system image has to be smaller than the target drive that you're deploying to.
Right.
So she was on a 64 gig SSD. The Surface Pro that I got was 128. So I took the system image, put it on an external hard drive. Once that was done, popped it, moved it over to the Surface Pro. And then the only hitch was I had to get the network driver working so that I could get the rest of the drivers working. Everything else, her Outlook was still set up properly. She's got, Quicken and all that, all the stuff for kind of running the household was on that machine. And so she's basically the only difference was I upgraded that machine to Windows 8.1. So the only difference from where she was is, a little bit smaller screen and Windows 8.1 instead of Windows 8.
Right.
So it made it really convenient to get her migrated in a matter of, the amount of active time that I spent was probably less than an hour to get her from one machine to another. So
I've gotten
really
very paranoid
system stuff.
Yeah, I've gotten very paranoid with some of my latest images. Several years back, excuse me, I had a regular set of spinning Rust drives completely fail on me, like in a way that those kind of drives usually don't fail. Like it was unrecoverable, except to maybe the NSA. I mean, they're only 30 minutes up the road. I could have brought it up there and they could have recovered all my stuff. And what I lost at the time was, and I realized this was more painful than losing some other stuff, is I lost probably about 6 months worth of photos that hadn't been backed up someplace else. And that is the painful part. That's not to equate this in a larger sense, but it's sort of like, your house burning down and you lose all the family photos and all that kind of stuff. Well, the new drive failure thing without a good backup is the new house burning down, because you lose all your digital photos and videos and a bunch of other stuff. So there's two things I do now. My second drive is always a spinning Rust drive, and it's in it's mirrored, so it's RAID. What's that? RAID 1.
RAID 1.
I think. Yeah, RAID 1.
Yeah, that was one of the recommendations I got on Twitter was use RAID.
Yeah. So I know I can get much better performance if I stripe it, but then it's like if either fails, then I'm screwed. So I've just got it in a 2-drive configuration, so that's one thing. My photos, videos, and some of my files also end up all going automatically up to SkyDrive. So that's like the other part of it. And then anything else, it's my SSD has only stuff I can reinstall. All my apps and operating system and everything else, and then all the data and stuff is over on what I consider to be more reliable but slower media.
Yeah. And so I mean, for the repave that I just did, because I didn't have another SSD handy, I just basically said, okay, what I'm going to do is grab one of the old spinning Rust drives that I've got that I've erased over the years, and it's 500 gigs. It's a 7,200 RPM, so it's not it's not nearly as fast as an SSD, but it's not not like a 4,200 RPM drive or something ridiculous like that.
It's not an old 5 1/4 inch.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that I went to install Windows 8 on it, and I was expecting it to be fairly tedious, given that I'm used to installing Windows 8 on an SSD. It's still pretty fast. And then once I'd installed Windows 8 this morning, went in, did the 73 Windows updates that were required. And then once I was finished with that, rebooted, went into the store, and the Windows 8.1 upgrade was prompted. So I just went through that. Took a little time to download, but even that install was relatively fast. And then the cool thing is, so the machine that I rebuilt was running Windows 7 because it was my media center PC. And although I don't have cable or Fios TV anymore, I actually have a pair of rabbit ears that connects to a digital tuner, and so I just record stuff over the air that I'm interested in. And interestingly enough, Windows 8 picked up all of the hardware. So the microphone that I use for recording the show, didn't have to install the drivers for that. My live cam that I use for recording this picked that up just fine. And then I had gotten, I guess back, prior to the release of Windows 8, we had a promotion going where you could get the Windows Media Center key, to enable that functionality in Windows 8 for free. And so I had signed up for that. And I had thought that it probably had expired by now, but when I went back in after installing Windows 8, just applied that key and boom, unlocked the functionality, went in, discovered my tuners, set up the programs that I'd had set to record. Like, of course, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Is definitely a must-watch for any geek. It's still iffy on the quality of it, but it has its moments. So, big Joss Whedon fan, so you gotta get your fun where you can. But I was really impressed by how easy that part of it was. I'm not looking forward to the number of software reinstalls that I've got to do. Like, I've got to reinstall Ableton Live. Yeah. And I have to reinstall several versions of Visual Studio. I'm not thrilled about that, but
I'm still finding stuff I haven't installed. Like the other day, I realized, Omnisphere here, I hadn't reinstalled yet on this machine, but. The reason I hadn't reinstalled it is this is not a good time.
Wow, that's a lot of discs.
And these are all DVDs.
And that's they don't have a downloadable version of
it? No, they don't.
Oh, that's terrible.
So, in fact, I also have Complete, which is by Native Instruments.
Yeah.
And I decided that rather than go through the process of reinstalling that, I went and upgraded to Complete Ultimate, which is funny. They have an incomplete version of Complete, then they have a complete version of Complete. and neither version of Complete actually carries their complete product line. So I don't know so anyway.
That's very confusing.
It is. But their higher end version of Complete Ultimate, they deliver it on a external drive. They actually mail you a drive rather than
Seriously?
Yes. Rather than sending
they mail you a spinning Rust drive.
Yeah, they mail you an external USB drive. Right.
Wow.
So I decided to upgrade to that because this is like when you're installing these things, despite how fast the fastest DVD drive is, you're sitting there for hours swapping disks, and it's no fun.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I will say, so one advantage of having that catastrophic failure is that there's lots of stuff that was on this machine that I was not using and was simply taking up space. And while that is going to require a little bit of cleanup on the drives that didn't fail, it is, sometimes it's nice having a little fresh start. So, a lot of cruft can be gotten rid of that just isn't needed. Yeah. And, I think that's an important reminder in our industry in general, and in terms of, that we tend to assign a lot of importance to our electronic lives and our electronic kind of information. There's lots of data that I wouldn't want to lose, but most of that is now in SkyDrive. And so it's on multiple machines, it's backed up, it's in the cloud. Paving a machine sometimes reminds me that the stuff that I thought was important really wasn't all that important. And if I need to, I can get the things that I need to done, after a few hours of reinstalling stuff. Yeah. Not a big deal.
It's interesting that it's become that much of a decision with computers these days. So, so I'm glad to see you're back up and running, at least for the most part here.
Yay.
And obviously folks don't realize this, but earlier today you were trying Skype over like a little tablet and some other stuff, and you were sideways and everything else. And so that was just a few hours ago. So glad to see that everything's up and running since then.
Although I think it might have been fun to actually have me be sideways for the whole show on my little Dell Venue tablet.
Yeah, so maybe.
That'd be kind of cool.
or maybe not. So there's a couple other things we want to talk about here in a second, but just today's show, after we rat hole on all these other things for a while, today's show is mostly about Christmas gifts for geeks. So we want to talk about that a bit. But in the meantime, of course, you and I being who we are, we each have new toys, right? So your Microbrute finally came in?
Yes, it did. It did indeed.
Is it possible to show it? There we go.
Sure. Just give me a second.
Nothing
here.
up
I'm
your
going to do
sleeve?
this hopefully without making people vomit.
Okay, let me put you full screen.
There's the Microbrute right here.
Sweet.
So the cool thing about the Microbrute, and the picture I'm looking at is backwards, so forgive me if it looks a little weird. I'm just going to ignore the on-screen. But it's got a 2-octave keyboard. It's got oscillator settings, so it has four different settings for kind of there's sawtooth wave, square wave, triangle wave, and then they have this overtone, which kind of can give you either subtones or fifths, depending on what you do with the knob. And then each of these has kind of some adjustments, so you can adjust the pulse width on the square wave. You can create some really funky shapes in the waveforms with the ultra saw setting, and then the triangle has this metallizer setting. There's a bunch of other. There's a filter that's got cutoff and resonance. Of course, you can do low pass, band pass, and high pass. They have this thing called brute factor, which is just basically dirty the crap out of the sound. Is what that does. Envelope settings, ADSR, typical stuff. They have a glide setting, so you can go from just kind of discrete pitches to sliding from one to another. And then an LFO that can be assigned to the mod wheel, so you can kind of add LFO type stuff to your sound. And then last but not least, there's a sequencer section that has eight patterns that you can, has 8 default patterns that are built in, and then you can customize them by recording your own. It's just a simple step sequencer.
So that's really nice, because the other Brute, the Mini Brute, doesn't have a step sequencer. It's got an arpeggiator, and the sequencer is much more versatile. Right.
Now, one of the cool things I'll show you here shortly, once I put the camera back where it belongs, is when you're dealing with a fully analog synth like this, the trick is there's no way to store or retrieve patches digitally, right? The patches are all a matter of how these knobs are set. Mm-hmm. So what they actually include is plastic overlays. So you've got, I forget how many, but there are probably about a dozen or so plastic overlays of predetermined patches that come with it, and then you've got some overlays that you can write your own patch settings on. Now, I've got this set up with a patch that I had kind of created, and I just took a picture of it with my digital camera as a way of saving it. So that's another potential option. But the overlays are neat because you can just drop them on there, set the knobs to match, and you get pretty close to what that patch looks like. And I'm going to try and stop moving the camera too much, although my arm's about to fall off.
So go ahead. I think we've seen it.
Okay. So let me... It's the barf cam.
There we go.
All right. So that was very exciting.
Sweet.
So let me get out the overlays real quick.
So folks know, you can have a fully analog synth that has patch storage in it, but they need to have a digital section that scans the values of the pots and is able to pull that. Something like the Mini Brute and the Microbrute, those knobs are connected directly to the circuits that are producing the sound. So yeah.
And given the pricing of the Microbrute, which was $299, I think.
Yeah.
It's super inexpensive, so it's understandable that they wouldn't. The cost to add that storage and retrieval would be fairly significant. So this is what the patch overlays look like, and they just literally drop onto the knobs, and they have little marks where you're supposed to set the particular values. Oh, the other thing that I didn't mention that's not really, it's kind of shown on here in this section here. There's actually a mini patch bay in the upper right corner of the Microbrute that allows you to patch things like you can patch the LFO out to the filter, or you can patch the envelope out to PWM. So you've got some things that you can patch, and then you can actually take that control volt. So there's one section that has both the control voltage on the LFO and the control voltage on the envelope. You could actually take those out to external gear if you wanted to. So like you have, some of the Eurorack synth stuff. You could actually take and patch stuff from the Microbrute out to your rack synth, and then take outputs from your rack synth and patch them back into the Microbrute, and kind of combine things in very interesting ways. And in fact, I think one of the toys that you got this week might actually be able to play in this world as well, if I recall correctly.
Is
that
possible.
Accurate?
So
because I think I remember somebody doing a demo video where they showed hooking one of those up, but I could be misremembering.
Yeah. So you're talking about the Volca that arrived today?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't they do control voltage?
So they do sync. So here's the Volca base that just arrived today. So if you had a regular signal that was coming out, like you could probably do this with the LFO. Like, does your LFO do a square wave?
Yes, does triangle, sawtooth, and square.
So you could probably sync this with that LFO if you wanted to, because it's just a pulse that you're looking for. You can even, I'm working on an app for Windows that you can sync these with as well, because I know there's some out there for iOS and other stuff where these synthesizers don't have, and the drum machines don't have any kind of interesting groove settings or changes in the timings or anything like that.
Right.
But if you use an external sync source, which is one pulse for each step, you can do whatever you want. You just change where the pulse comes through and everything. So I'm trying to work on a Windows version of that just for grins.
So before we move off the Microbrute, I did want to at least play a little bit of a sound. So I'm going to pop my headphones loose so we can actually hear it over the mic. But so I was just fiddling around with some of the parameters, and I came up with something that actually almost sounds semi-percussive. So it's a little like this. So and this is just one key right now. And then if I change the key, so it's kind of like, it's almost got a pattern to it. Well, what I'm doing there is I'm actually using one of the patterns in the sequencer along with some LFO control to kind of change the sound as it goes. So without the mod wheel up and the LFO in place, this is what that pattern sounds like. But when I add the mod wheel in, I get that kind of almost syncopated feel to it, that kind of little bit of a rhythmic pulse to it. And, so just, and I've only just sort of scratched the surface of kind of things that you can do. And the real enjoyment of an analog synth as opposed to a digital synth is, you go in with a digital synth and you're typically just either selecting patches, or when you go in to try to start tweaking a patch in a digital synth, either you're going through page after page of settings on a little tiny screen, which is a pain, or you're going into some software program that's talking to the synth. In this case, you've got all of the stuff that you can use to control the sound is right there in front of you, and you can kind of tweak in real time and play around with it. It's a very organic kind of way of doing things. So I'm really, I'm pretty happy with it for the price.
It sounds real good.
Sorry.
Saying it sounds real good.
There we go. All right.
I try not to talk when I know you're unplugged because anyway.
You don't want to get, it's bad enough that you have the one kind of,
So it sounds really good. And I'm looking forward to hearing some cool sounds coming out of that from you as maybe a new show.
Maybe I'll do our V2 theme song or something.
Yeah. So let me show you what I got. Not as cool as that. So the Volca, as we saw, just came half an hour before we started recording. So haven't done anything with that yet.
So the FedEx Ninja didn't just ring the doorbell and run away.
He did, but as it turns out, I didn't need a signature, so it was okay.
Okay.
Because I went out there and there was a packet. It's like you look out the door, nothing. Look out the door, nothing. Go grab a coffee. Look out the door, package. Where did he go? He never even came. It's like my driveway is 400 feet long. I live behind another house in the woods. And there's no way you could sneak down the driveway. but they do.
Right.
I have no idea.
So you'll love this. So last show, we unboxed the Dell Venue Pro that I got. So I had ordered the Venue Pro and the cover and the stylus. The Venue Pro shipped first, the stylus and the cover later, and they were scheduled to arrive on the 12th. 12th came and gone, no package. Now the interesting thing is the tablet itself, no signature required. The cover and the stylus, signature required on the package. What? And so I went into to look at the shipping when it didn't arrive, and there was a little notation, customer not available to receive shipment or something like that. Yeah. Like, okay, so I was here all day.
We both work from home. Here, where are these guys showing up?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, do you get some kind of a bonus for not delivering my package? What's going on here?
I think it's a challenge.
It finally did arrive. The cover, very nice. The stylus, I'm still very happy with the Venue Pro as a tablet. I would not suggest that people buy the stylus until or unless they address, I'm hoping that a driver fix may improve it. What's interesting is the stylus works actually really well for Inkscape, which is one of the things that I wanted it for. Does not work at all in Fresh Paint, which is bizarre. It just, you get very, very light, you get very little coverage at all. Not great for handwriting because it's designed to be active so that you kind of get a hover state before you actually click something. So if you were using it in place of a mouse, I think that's kind of the scenario for it. But it tends to leave little loops after you pick it up when you're trying to write. And, I found that for that particular scenario, it's just as easy to use a capacitive stylus and just as effective. So
interesting. Yeah. Cause I know that the stylus for Surface Pro, a lot of people use that and don't have those issues. So it sounds like it might be something specific to the Dell.
So for the Surface Pro, it's actually a Wacom digitizer. So it's actually an electromagnetic pen. In the case of the Dell, my understanding is that it's still capacitive because the screen itself, I don't think has a full-on digitizer. It could be mistaken, but I mean, at the price level that we're talking about, I'm not surprised that it's not, the same level of quality that you'd get. And honestly, the digitizer pen was a want-to-have for this kind of scenario. It wasn't a must-have, or actually, I should be careful in how I describe it. It's not a digitizer pen on the Dell. It's referred to as an active stylus, and it does have a battery.
It replaces your finger with some.
Yeah. I mean, it's more precise for selecting things than your finger would be. So there are some scenarios where it is an improvement over your finger, but a lot of people want it for taking notes or drawing, and in those two scenarios, I think it's not quite there. Yeah. So sad news.
Bummer on that. But glad that you were able to finally get it. It is some sort of strange coincidence that a stylus would require a signature for delivery. Something odd about that.
Sort of weird.
Yeah. So, hey, two little things that I got that I wanted to show up. So one of these is I got my eevblog PCB ruler. Let's see if it'll focus here. These are ruler that Dave Jones from eevblog, you see his little symbol there, had put together, and he had sort of like a Kickstarter, but it was the Australian version of Kickstarter or something like that. So these are actually done as PCBs, but they have on them like standard hole sizes on one end here. They have different trace widths, a bunch of helpful calculations. It tells you like sizes of different footprints, all this kind of stuff. So cool little kind of geeky thing that was pretty cheap. The shipping was more than anything, so I got them, a set of like 5 of them here because the PCBs themselves are dirt cheap compared to the shipping for 1 or 5. So I'll probably end up sending one of you these, Andrew, just because I think you would make like, I'm not going to put one of these in my mother's stocking for Christmas, but I'll find some other geek friends to it does look like
it's got a nice Christmassy red background color there, so that's nice.
It might be good.
Be a good stocking stuffer.
The other thing I got, let me pull this up, and this just showed up too, and I'm going away all next week to campus, so I'm going to be incredibly busy at the time, so I won't get a chance to use this, which is what's killing me, because I'm just going to have to set it aside. But this is, let me see if I can get it up there. So it looks like a motherboard, right? And
yeah.
With a crazy
with
number
a lot
of
of serial
ports. Yeah. A bunch of other.
That's a lot of ports on that board.
Yeah.
So
some audio.
Is that audio in and audio out?
Yeah, I believe so.
Audio
yes.
out. Okay.
I have to double check. I believe it's audio. So this is a carrier board. It's a test board for a product called the Appalis or Appialis T30, which is this guy, which also came with it, which it's on a little connector like a the PCI Express that's inside a laptop. It's like that kind of connector. See if I can push it up closer to, man, that's not going to focus. Anyway, the processor that is on here is an NVIDIA Tegra Tegra 3, and it's essentially the same thing as the original Surface RT, right? But you can code for this using and run either Linux, or you can also run Windows CE, Windows Compact Embedded 2013, which is what I'm going to play with on that. And I also got at the same time, here it is. At the same time, all these things together. And these, I ordered these over the summer, and they just came now finally. But it also comes with a 7-inch touchscreen, right?
Nice.
So it's got stuff on there. And so I can connect all those together and do some Windows Compact Embedded programming on it. And I had a specific project in mind that would incorporate this as well as some of the microcontroller stuff that I'm doing. But the microcontrollers just weren't powerful enough. And, sometimes you want an operating system. And Windows Compact Embedded is good for real-time stuff, which is what I'm doing here. It's actually the only real-time OS that Microsoft makes is Windows Compact Embedded. All the other ones, have preemptive multitasking and stuff like that. But this will let me do some things when integrated with the microcontrollers that I couldn't do with the microcontrollers just all by themselves. So I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to play with that. Honestly, probably not until Christmas break, looking at my schedule here for the next several weeks. But that should be really fun.
So do I even want to know how much that cost?
It was pretty pricey. It was.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It was pretty pricey. I mean, I actually have a product idea for this, and I just have to see if something happens coming out of that. But at the same time, being able to code for it using .NET, C++, there's actually a version of Silverlight that runs on Windows Compact Embedded. It's based on Silverlight 3 with C++. So it's funny because we've sort of come back around to the C++ and XAML thing on actual Windows 8 and 8.1. And this is where C++ and XAML kind of originated. So looking forward to playing with that. But this is a brand new product with the NVIDIA. Echo again today is killing me. The NVIDIA Tegra 3. So I can't wait to get into that.
That is one big honkin' PCB, I got to tell you.
So their carrier board breaks out everything, but when you want to create an actual product out of it, what you need is you need to have a connector just for this, and then have it break out everything that you need, and then you're good. And it uses a standard connector that I have no idea how it would solder on because they're not generally hand solder friendly, but it uses a pretty standard connector that you can incorporate into your own designs. So cool stuff there. Cool. Now, today, speaking of Christmas and Christmas break and all that kind of stuff, let me turn this a little bit this way. I wanted to go through a few interesting gift ideas for geeks. So you and I are always getting new stuff. It's starting to become the, I don't even know how to explain it. People with too much stuff show. But nevertheless, there are a few things I think
It's the we created a show as an excuse to buy new toys show.
Yeah, pretty much. There's probably a geek in your life somewhere. So husband, wife, kids, anything like that. And I wanted to bring up a couple of cool gift ideas, above and beyond the usual, there are going to be lots of Surfaces and iPads and Nexus and everything else being under Christmas trees this year. So beyond those consumer things. What was that?
I said, wouldn't that be Nexi?
Nexuses, something like that. Google tablets. There's going to be a lot of that stuff under the Christmas tree.
Right.
But then there are lots of other things where if you're not a geek yourself, first of all, you're not going to find this show. So if you are a geek yourself, you might want to just show them some of the stuff that we bring up here and have it be your hint for Christmas here. And every so often the echo catches up with me. So if you hear me going like bar, 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 it's because the feedback loop goes crazy. All right. So first thing that I want to bring up. Now people aren't going to see either of us while I show these show the web pages, but you can keep talking, Andrew.
Okay.
So first of all, here's the Toradex, the Appalis that I got today. Just wanted to have that out there so people know that you can play with that. The first gift that I was thinking of, and this is a category of like children or those of us who act like children, is Lego Mindstorms EV3. So I've got the Amazon page up. Lego So Andrew, do you have any Mindstorm stuff?
I think I have the V2 Mindstorms, and I had kind of toyed with the idea of building a Gadgeteer module for controlling the motors and such, and just never really kind of got finished with that. I actually had bought some components that allow you to breadboard the motors and sensors. That they've got that funky network. It's basically kind of like an RJ45, but the tabs offset.
Yes.
Sort of that stuff drives me crazy. Proprietary connectors like that.
Yep.
But I did find some place where I could get the connector set up with just pinouts so that you can just pop it into a breadboard. But ultimately I've kind of gone through and built a few of the robots from the kit, and then it's just kind of sat. So
yeah. So I did get one of these. For a couple of reasons. I put together developer training for our field, which is the cause of many nights of staying up working on slide decks over the past few weeks. But I tried to make, in the spirit of the things that you and I like, I tried to make sure some of the demos were really fun and unusual stuff. And so Mindstorms is part of that. We've got an SDK on Codeplex that you can play with. But beyond that, lots of kids are starting to get into this for beginning robotics because, my son is 7.5. He's starting to get at the age where he can really start to understand stuff like Mindstorms and robotics a lot more. He's also addicted to computers, just like I am. Unfortunately, fortunately, whatever, right? So this Mindstorm stuff helps bridge the physical world with the world that's inside your screen. So you're able to combine the two of those together. It is pretty expensive. This is one of those things that's not a stocking stuffer. But I think the educational value of it, and then just the enjoyment that a geek parent will get working on it with their kids, can make it worth it. All right.
Now, you said you've included demos in the training stuff that you're doing. I assume that means that your team has some budget to send all of the evangelists these kits, the EV3s, right?
No.
Should I expect that in the mail shortly?
No, the whole point of this is to give you all reasons to buy these and then expense it with your manager or something like that later on, right? So there you go.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I'll let you know how that goes.
So there's also Sphero is one of the demos. There's a 3D printing demo. Good luck with the budget on that one too. Okay. There's going to be a whole unit of really awesome demos that you guys are going to look at and be like, we can't do any of these. Forget these. So, all right. So the next one is Little Bits. So we've talked about Little Bits in the past. And we talked about the synth kit, which is now officially available. They're still shipping those, I think, in December, beginning of December, something like that. So it's still valid for a Christmas present. But they also have lots of other kits besides just the synth kit. So I've just scrolled down here. They have exploration kits, which are really good for teaching kids, simple electronics. So, for example, I taught my son and an OR using their kits because they have sections or modules that are and or, where it's like, hey, press both buttons and the light lights up. So like an and, or press only one of them but not both, and then the light won't light up. Right. So they have all that great stuff. And these all run. Oh, go ahead.
So the interesting thing, I had pulled up the page. I love the Keytar synth kit project. That's awesome. I might just have to make that because I did actually order the kit for my sons, or I think they're out of the house, so I can say it out loud.
Yep.
But I did actually order this, and of course I ordered it. And when my wife asked what the charge was for, I said this is for a Christmas present for the boys, not mentioning that I'm one of the boys.
Of course, that's very clever of you. So the Keytar
thing, you got to do.
It takes a special kind of personality to play a guitar and be totally okay with yourself. So kids can get away with it, but I don't think anybody else has been able to get away with that since about 1987 or so. But still,
maybe cool even product. 1985.
Yeah, maybe. So rocking out with the Keytar, with the mullet Keytar. All right,
gotta love it. Okay,
so their kits start at I think $99 for like regular stuff, $159 for the do-it-yourself Keytar, and then they go up from there. But you can do pretty well on $99 with that. Still more than you might want to spend, but again, if you factor in the educational value of it, I think it can be really good.
So I wonder how these compare price. I wonder how these compare price-wise to snap circuits, because the other kits that I really favor, and I have, as I mentioned, I think in the last show, I have kind of the huge educator kit. My sense is that the little bits tend to be a little bit higher order, that the modules are a little more, they have more functionality in a single module, whereas the snap circuits are almost, without exception, are individual components. Right. So you'll have a bunch of snap circuits that are different different level resistors, or a light, or an LED, or a motor, but there isn't any logic involved in the vast majority of the snap circuits. Whereas my sense is that the little bits are kind of the next level up in complexity.
Yeah, and snap circuits will have some real basic microcontroller and sound modules as well. And it'll be like on a big block with lots of points you can snap to, where little bits tends not to have that. So there's room for both. My son had found the snapping of the snap circuits. Now, he was 5 when we first got this, so I probably introduced it too early. That's how things go. My son's 2, and I'm like, why aren't you building something useful? He found the snapping and unsnapping to actually be kind of difficult, right? And so these other ones are magnetic, and you can't connect them the wrong way. So something like snap circuits, you can connect it the wrong way, and I don't think you're going to see smoke, but in theory, that's possible, right?
Yeah.
So I like them both.
Yeah.
All right, so that's snap circuits in this. So let me go back over here. Let's get to something a little cheaper. So what I've got here is Maker Shed, and there's a little obstacle avoiding robot kit. And I haven't tried these out myself yet, and see, hopefully nobody can hear me. I'll have to whisper here, but there are a couple in the Santa Claus pile in the back room. But these are cardboard robots, but they have real motors and stuff inside them. These are robots that you don't need to solder, and they come with, let me see if I scroll down, there's like a little bit of information on how to put them together. Let's see, let's call that video of how it works, etc. But it's $13. It's cardboard, so over time it's going to get beat up, but for $13, I'm kind of okay with that, knowing that there'll be some fun and some education involved in this. So I've got some of these, which I think are pretty good.
Well, and for geek, I mean, we should just start out from the standpoint of, for geek gifts, whether you're talking Christmas, birthday, whatever else, the two places that you have to look if you have a geek in your life are Maker Shed and ThinkGeek. So Maker Shed is much more about kind of the active geek stuff, the stuff that you build, whereas ThinkGeek is all about Star Trek and Doctor Who and, geeky fun toys that most of them come pre-assembled.
Right.
But yes, this looks pretty awesome. Now, is that supposed to be a cat or I can't tell what kind of animal that's supposed to be.
I don't know, but if it makes my kids happy, I'll call them Pokemon. Right.
There you go.
So the next one is also from the same place. And this is the same kind of technology in the robot, papercraft / cardboard. And these are pretty small, by the way. So don't think that you're getting something that's like full, like size of your head or something. You need to watch a video and see the size of these. But this one is a radio control cube car. It's $16. Same kind of technology as the other stuff, but it's a slightly upgraded robot. So I think these are pretty good as well, right? Once you start getting over $25, $30 and stuff like that, that's when you start really being concerned about, longevity of something and is it going to be beat up? Is it going to last more than a week or something like that? So for these, for $15, for $12, I'm actually pretty happy with what you get out of those. All right.
Very, very cool.
Now, the next thing, also from Maker Shed, so we got sort of a theme here. We mentioned this on, I think, the last show, but I did go and, I'll be quiet again. I did order one for my son to put together for Christmas. This is the Big Shot camera kit, and this is the kit where you are actually putting together an LCD camera, right? So let's see if I can find so it's actually not a crap LCD camera either. It's got internal storage. It's got flash on it. It's you can actually crank the camera itself to get to charge the flash, which is interesting. But it does have a battery in there.
So the piece that I really like about this is it includes stereo with 3D glasses included, so you can actually take stereo pictures with it. Yeah, that's pretty slick.
And it's really here. Let me pull up this picture here. See if that works. Hey, there we go. Okay. So it comes, you see, in pieces here, but there's no soldering, which for little kids, like my son, I have taught him how to do basic soldering, but I know that I need to dedicate, more time and a bunch of other stuff to putting together anything of substance with him. So what's nice about these is you put them together just like any other model kit. There's no soldering involved, but all the other pieces are just complex enough to, I think, keep an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or even older occupied with something like this for a while. And you can see there's the 3D glasses that you were talking about. It'll also do panoramic photos, which I thought was pretty cool, right? Now, it's not a Carl Zeiss lens, right? But it's still going to be, I think it's still going to be pretty good.
Now, one of the things, speaking of digital cameras, so my son's a little younger. My youngest son is a little younger than yours, and he actually, unfortunately, we had a little point-and-shoot camera that he managed to destroy. I think he ended up dropping it on the lens when it was extended and just completely trashed the lens train. So I've been kind of thinking, okay, how can I avoid that in the future? And one of the things I found on Amazon is there is actually a Lego branded digital camera. And so it looks like it's made of Lego bricks, and you could actually stack bricks on top of it. And I just thought, and he and his brother are both absolutely nuts for Legos. So I just thought, it's inexpensive. It can be his digital camera. No, it's not going to take super high quality photos, but he gets to have his own digital camera. I get to not have him break one of ours. It's a win-win.
So what you should have done, I'm going to tell you what you should have done here. Since he actually broke something, you should have gotten him the Barbie camera, which is the one where it's actually a Barbie doll with a camera in the belly, and you have to aim it at people. It's really bizarre thing.
That sounds creepy.
Yeah, it is pretty creepy, especially if you're holding it up to your face. Very creepy.
I don't know. That's one of those things where sometimes you might want to just, have that. Can you imagine if you were a grown up and you whipped out a Barbie and said, "Here, let me take your picture."
That might be worth it.
People would call the cuckoo wagon for you, I guess.
I think that might be worth it. All right, so that's it for the kid things that I brought up. Although some folks may debate whether or not the rest of these things here are really for kids or not. But all of those, I think, are good parent-children exercises. Like the the little robots, since I got two of them, I know that I'll be helping them put those together, and they'll be able to bump into each other on the table and do all that stuff. And I think both of the kids will have fun with that.
Right.
The next thing that I have here, and more for adults that are, or older kids, and we're going to start classifying these by price. So in the 50 and under category, I have the FesMedusa starter kit.
Not 50 years, right?
Yes. Yes, you're right. Everything here is
not 50 years.
Yes. So in the $50 and under category, I have the FesMedusa starter kit. And Andrew, you want to tell us a little something about what the Medusa is?
Sure. So basically, GHI Electronics, which both of us have kind of worked closely with them and with the community there, they're a big supplier of the .NET Gadgeteer platform, which is .NET Micro Framework plus a little bit of extra software to make it really easy to plug and play electronics. And what Gus over at GHI realized is that it's probably not fair that only the Gadgeteer folks get to play with Gadgeteer modules, and since GHI had built a crap load of modules. I mean, I think they probably got well over 100 by now of these standard 10-pin plug-in modules. He figured, well, what if we could make it so that people in the Arduino world can play in this playground as well? And so what they did is they created a family of main boards called the FesMedusa line. The starter kit here includes the FesMedusa Mini, which is kind of a very small Arduino-based microcontroller board with, I think it's got 4 sockets on it. So you can, this kit's got, I think, a piezo, a joystick, and a screen. So you could do, miniature video games with this. And you're writing them using the same code that you'd write using Arduino, use the same, editor. So for people who know Arduino to begin with, this is a great way to get into kind of the world of Gadgeteer modules. And all of the modules come with libraries that drive the modules. So it's just kind of like having drivers. So it's pretty straightforward.
To be fair, the Arduino world is huge. It's been around longer,
absolutely.
and tons of people coding for it. So it is really great that, especially for companies that are building Gadgeteer modules, they now have another outlet for where they can sell those modules to. And Arduino is good at some things that .NET Micro Framework isn't good at. So like real-time stuff.
Yep.
Whereas Micro Framework and Gadgeteer are good at some other things, such as the developer productivity and integrating a bunch of stuff and things like threads, all that stuff is very helpful as well. So it's just a really nice kind of merger of the two worlds.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And you can get into that pretty cheaply. The starter kit, the one that I showed there for a second, is has the equivalent of an Arduino on it. Then there's also up on the screen here the FesMedusa Shield. This requires you to take an existing Arduino, plug the shield onto it, and then you can still use it just like anything else here. Right? Very cool stuff there. Next one is a store that I spent in the past way too much money at. We were talking about ThinkGeek, but this one is called the Big Bad Toy Store. So if you're looking for where to get, things like Daleks and, the stuff, the Star Blazer stuff, modern Transformers, all those things, action figures, all sorts of stuff there. Pretty much you can't go wrong here. So if you know that your significant other or whoever you're buying for has an interest in a particular show or a particular set of figures or something like that, you can probably find them here. And in all the time that I've been shopping there, I've only had one thing fail, and that was because they decided not to build it. But I had an order in for a bust. I think it's probably about the size of my head, of one of the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who. But unfortunately, that just didn't end up going into production. But that was one thing I pre-ordered that I was really looking forward to getting to that I didn't. But this is good for things to fill your shelves, toys, all sorts of great stuff. So and you can find pretty much anything.
So this is kind of funny because I didn't actually get around to taking a picture and sending it to you. But the last time that I was at the Tyson's Corner Mall, where I go to the Microsoft store there bi-weekly for my office hours, And I actually stopped in. I had parked in on a different level, so I came in through a different path. And there was a toy store on the way to the Microsoft store. And I stopped in. And the first thing as you walk in the store was an end cap that was all Doctor Who. And I thought, oh, Pete would love this. You know, stuffed Daleks. And like, oh, Pete would be in heaven here. So I was thinking of you, buddy.
Thank you. I know she didn't actually buy anything for me, though, so I understand. It was just a thought. Thought that counts.
Well, you know.
All right. And I'm going to show the next thing here for just a second, but I could hear in the audio the clicking, so I finally figured out what causes the clicking. It's when the screen updates inside that area that's being captured on my other monitor. That's what's causing the audio clicking. So I'm going to pull up ThinkGeek here, but it's got an animated slideshow, and it's going to click the whole time, so I'll only show it for a minute.
Oh, no.
It's going to go click, click, click.
So sad.
So here we go.
Oh, wow. Light fountain speakers.
Yeah. So these are...
Wow.
There we go. Yeah. So those are pretty interesting, first of all. Don't get that chrome. That looks like the old... Remember all the chrome stuff for the Mac years ago? I thought that stuff was pretty hideous. But this is really interesting. You hook these speakers up to your sound, and they're $50, right? But it does a water and light show inside them. Now, they do come in black and some other colors that are more respectable than chrome. But it's just like one of those things. It's going to take up space on your desk. But I always like stuff that responds to sound and music. You know, I'm still waiting for my giant order of LED panels from the Kickstarter campaign, and when those come in, I intend to build something that's gonna respond to audio as well. But I think these are a pretty cool idea. They're office friendly, right? So it could be interesting to see a visual graph of what your typical conference call looks like coming through on those, right? So see how much.
Just in case you're just really tired of the boring conference calls, you just hook one of these up and just stare at the fountain the entire time.
Yeah. You know, that's what people are doing on conference calls anyway. They're just staring off into space, not listening to anything, and hoping some person makes a decision at some time. So those would be good, and maybe you could even use it. You can rate people. Oh, go ahead.
Have you ever been on the calls when somebody insists, "Hey, let's have everybody be on camera," so that we know that people will be paying attention?
Oh, yeah. So most of my conference calls are camera. And I actually prefer that, because when you're not, people forget you're even in there. I once had a conference call end, and everybody left the room, and I was still on the phone. I'm just like, hey.
Guys.
Like, yeah, right,
what
guys.
happened? Where's everybody?
Okay.
Did you forget me? All right.
So it's funny, we're getting that audio clicking quite a bit now, so I've jinxed it. So let me do the next one.
Next price tier.
So this is kind of the 100 and under, but it's $100 and under, right? In fact, I have one thing here, but there's a whole bunch of subscription-based stuff available now. And I know that if you ever watched Barnacules on YouTube, he's been getting a bunch of these nerd blocks lately. They're not really the kind of thing that I want to sign up for, because what you get in it's not necessarily in the interest areas that I have. But for general nerd and geekiness and kids, it's certainly getting a box every month with mystery stuff in it can be pretty exciting. So in this case, it's $20 a month, and they send you a box that has a T-shirt and then a bunch of nerd stuff in it. So it has action figures. It has, it's like anything that they think will be interesting to you. It's sort of like getting a random package from ThinkGeek or a place like that, plus a T-shirt in your size every month. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
It sort of seems like you're, not nearly as inexpensive, but if you're a big Woot.com fan, it seems kind of like their bag of crap during their Woot offs.
Yes, except these are hopefully not crap, and then everybody gets the same thing. So that was the interesting part. So for any given month, every single person gets the same thing. So I think this is a really cool thing. I say under $100 because maybe you sign somebody up for just a few months or something of it just to try it out. But it's, I think, a pretty cool thing to give to geek that you don't know what else to get them.
Right.
All right. Next one is the Sphero 2. Now, I
Right,
showed
you
this
showed that.
last week. Yep, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. 130
It's kind of
bucks.
a Bluetooth cat toy.
Yes, Bluetooth cat toy. It's a robot.
Annoy your pets. Right. Annoy your pets via Bluetooth.
Yeah. So it's a real robot. You can control it to do things. It's has an interesting way of doing its motion where it's inside a wheel. It's the geek version of having a hamster, I think is what it is. So you could either get a hamster and a wheel, but then you have to feed it and clean stuff and all that, or you can get this one where it just requires you to charge it every so often. Another way.
Now, in terms of charging, I noticed it didn't look like it had any contacts. Is it what's the word I'm looking for?
Yes.
Inductive charging?
Yeah, it's the charging here where they've got my pile of cables. You can't. I don't know if you can. Let's see. It's got a little cup.
Yeah, I can see it.
That sits in, and then you just put it in there, and it repositions itself automatically to the right spot.
It's right behind your mic for me, but probably the folks on the video can see it.
It was probably also right behind the mic for everybody in the video, but yes. So that's a cool thing. Again, 130 bucks. If you're a programmer for any platform, there are SDKs for pretty much everything. SDKs for Windows, SDKs for Android, for, apps and SDKs for iOS, etc. So definitely a very cool thing there. And then, of course, we've talked a bit about Volca, the Korg Volca stuff, which I've got one here. Those are more the $200. Same with this one. Range. It's $149 for any of the Volca stuff. They are interesting enough that if you have somebody who's not really great as a musician, but maybe likes to noodle around with things, create patterns, just learning some stuff, these are pretty good for that. And if you know somebody who is a really good musician, they'll probably have fun with it as well. So I definitely fall more into the former category, and you can have lots of fun just creating loops and beats and things like that with these. And you can get those. Local music stores will have those. You can also get them online. You do need to pre-order for the most part. There is a lag between when you order and when you're going to get them because they've been so popular. This one I've been waiting for since much earlier in the year. I don't remember the exact time it was when I had ordered it. And then the Beats I had ordered back in like April, and they showed up like about a month ago, right? So those, but now,
so you might not be able to get that before Christmas.
They're starting to really get into stock in places.
Okay.
Your best bet is to be able to pick it up in person if there's a place that has it, and I know lots of places do. If not, before you order it from somebody like Sweetwater or any of these or online music stores, ask them if they have it in stock before you order it. If they say, well, no, but there's a lead time of like 3 weeks or something, go someplace else because that lead time is not 3 weeks. That lead time is a guess, and it depends when Korg's going to send out the inventory. All righty. Cool. So we did those. Now the next one, I'll pull this up here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the throwable panoramic ball camera?
Yeah, so I had seen this a couple of times. And
is that seriously the name? A throwable panoramic ball camera?
Well, no, so they've got it up on Indiegogo, one of the Kickstarter like places, and it's actually called Panono, which I'm not sure is much better in terms
that's
of name,
better than the ball cam. Thank you very
much. But the basic idea is it's a ball that has, I think, 30 some odd digital camera lenses, and when you throw it up in the air and it reaches the I guess the apogee, that's the peak of its travel, it takes a picture with all of the cameras at once, and then it drops back down and you catch it. At least I would certainly hope that you catch it because it's a fairly expensive device. The cheapest you can get one for, if you get the early bird, is $499. And if you're an EU customer, you have to add $95 for VAT, which is nice. So basically you're talking $500 plus, and that's if you're early bird. That being said, it's a pretty awesome idea, and they include special software that allows you to view throughout the panorama. It's for the geek who has way too much money and wants something for next Christmas, because these aren't going to ship out until next fall. So this is not for this Christmas at all. But it's a very cool idea. And if you've got money burning a hole in your pocket, go take a look.
So what I think we need to do is, since we've just got past Halloween here, need to combine these things with like that pumpkin chunkin type stuff, so you can start launching these from cannons and then have them take a photo when they hit their highest point, and then hopefully somebody could catch it on the other end.
Yeah, I was going to say that would have to be a pretty durable camera. At $500 a pop, I would not want to break one of these. Yeah. I'm actually looking. They've got they have pictures on the Indiegogo page that link to, I guess it's an online version of their software. So you can actually look at the resulting pictures from some of these, some of their attempts. I think one of these, it's got to be a shot, I'm guessing, of Taiwan from up above, but very cool stuff. So,
and we'll have links to all these in the show notes, of course, but
yeah, I can't say for sure whether I'll shell out $500 for one of these, but maybe in a couple of years when the price drops a little bit, I could swing it. So pretty cool idea.
I'm looking at the picture of it again, and it looks like it's maybe covered in foam rubber or something like that. So it can probably take, a typical throw it up in your hand and then recatch it kind of impact. But dropping it out of a building window or something is probably not going to happen.
Well, so the other interesting thing is, if you look at the first link that I sent, the final product or the version that they're showing on Indiegogo is very different. It looks like it's clear acrylic, and there isn't any external padding to where the clear acrylic part is. So this is definitely not a throw it and let it land kind of thing. This is, you want to throw it such that you can actually catch it.
All right, let's pull up Indiegogo here a second. Come on. Where? Oh, because it's in the search thing. Let me pull it up in la. There we go. Let me share this. Oh, yes, that does look quite different.
Yeah.
Now, they need almost $1 million to manufacture this, it looks like. They're up at 181K, so still. But actually, that looks pretty impressive.
Yeah, they have a ways to go. They've still got 52 days left. But yeah, almost $1 million is a pretty high bar to set for any project.
And you know what that looks like to me?
What's that? Oh yes, I know exactly what it. Star Wars.
Yes,
right.
That's what you're going to practice your lightsaber stuff.
Drone. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It does look very much. I wonder if they were going for that look.
I don't know, but it definitely did.
Wasn't that drone white? I think that drone was white.
I think so, but it still has that same idea.
It does.
So I see the panoramic photos. So you say a camera. You say it's a $500 camera, but it must have like 20 cameras inside it or something, right? I mean,
I think it's got at least 20 lenses, or I think they said it's something like 30 some odd lenses.
So somebody's figured out a way to take something like 30 lenses and CCDs, because I'm assuming that each lens has its own, CCD in there. Hook it up to a single microcontroller of some sort and stitch a really cool panoramic photo out of that. So that's actually, I can see $500 being cost of that, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, the question is, will enough people be willing to pay that much? Right. By the way, if you look at the press reviews, clearly you're not the only one who thought this. The Mashable reviews, the Panono camera, a throwable ball-like device loaded with cameras on its outer surface that looks kind of like Luke Skywalker's lightsaber practice ball from Star Wars.
Yes.
So obviously not the only one who kind of saw that particular resemblance.
Yeah, if they can get it to shoot lasers, that would be awesome. Just show it. If you could throw it up in the air, get it to shoot a laser at somebody, and then photograph the reaction at the time of impact, I would easily pay $500 for that. I'm not sure I'm going to pay $500 for it in its current state, but yeah, I think the other stuff would be good.
So you don't need the sharks, you just need the freaking lasers.
Yes. That's it.
So
well, cool. So
could I just get a lightsaber practice ball with some freaking lasers here?
Yes. We're gonna.
I'm the boss. Throw me a bone.
Yes, and all the references here that nobody will get, but that's okay. So next week, I'm going to be on campus. So there's an MVP Summit. And next Thursday at this time, if there are developers who are interested, I'm doing a full day live event where a lot of those demos that I talked about, like Lego and Sphero and all that stuff, that's part of that. So that'll be broadcast live. What it does mean is I won't be here for this, so we won't have a show next week. And then, of course, the following Thursday, even our one regular viewer is not going to be able to make it on Thanksgiving probably, so we won't have a show there. So we're looking at December, beginning of December for our next show here at that point.
And that would be December 5th would be the next Thursday, the first Thursday.
So that's why I want to make sure we got the Christmas stuff out now, because I know everybody likes to go shopping right after Thanksgiving. So please think of the geek in your life. They don't want socks unless they're those sensor socks that can report back to your phone all the stuff about like how you're walking and everything. That might be interesting.
Or blinky lights. Socks
or blinky light socks.
Lights.
Yeah.
Gotta have blinky lights.
Yeah. So think of the geek in your life. Make sure you get them something cool. You know, iPhones and iPads and Surfaces and all that kind of stuff. Those are all really fun. But you also need to get them past the mainstream and start looking at more electronics and robots and other cool stuff as well. Right? So, Andrew, are you going to beg your wife for any of this kind of stuff for Christmas? You know what I usually do?
I don't know. So the sad truth about me is that when it comes to geek gifts, I tend to be pretty much a self-giver of that stuff. So, you know,
it's the same thing too.
And my wife is not a geek by any stretch of the imagination, and so she doesn't really bother trying to find the geek stuff for me. What she does is, you know, she'll get me kind of non-geek fun stuff, or non-geek, like bathrobes or things like that. That's not a bad thing.
A bathrobe is absolutely a non-geek present. So unless that bathrobe has some like light up stuff or I don't even know what you would do to a bathrobe to make it an appropriate geek present, but make it bigger on the inside like the TARDIS or something. I have no idea. So maybe I need to have a conversation with her.
In my heavier days, that would actually be nice to have a bathrobe that's bigger on the inside. Kind of looks slim from the outside, but
there you go. Unless it's a cloak of invisibility from Harry Potter, it's not happening. So anyway,
cool.
So I know a bunch of you are going to be shopping for this kind of stuff, or hoping that somebody else in your family goes shopping. Be sure to pass the show and the show notes to them so they have some interesting ideas for stuff to get for you. And I'm with you. I'm usually self-funding when it comes to the geek stuff, but also around this time of the year, I stop buying myself things, and suddenly my wife shows up with extra money in her bank account to like get me something for Christmas, right? So it's sort of it's the same thing. Self-funding, cool. But I have to wait for it. Right.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Well, sometimes it's nice to be surprised.
Yes, it is. Excellent.
Cool.
Well, thanks folks for watching. Appreciate you tuning in here, whether you're watching it live or recorded. And then we'll see you again in a couple weeks. Later.
Ta-ta.